Part 7. It was awful, he cried. Awful, awful. Still, the sun was hot. Still, one got over things. Still, life had a way of adding day to day. Still, he thought, yawning and beginning to take notice, Regent's Park had changed very little since he was a boy, except for the squirrels. Still, presumably, there were compensations. When little Elsie Mitchell, who had been picking up pebbles to add to the pebble collection which she and her brother were making on the nursery mantelpiece, plumped her handful down on the nurse's knee and scudded off again full tilt into a lady's legs, Peter Walsh laughed out. But Lucretia Warren Smith was saying to herself, "It's wicked. Why should I suffer?" she was asking as she walked down the broad path. "No, I can't stand it any longer," she was saying, having left Septimus, who wasn't Septimus any longer, to say hard, cruel, wicked things, to talk to himself, to talk to a dead man on the seat over there, when the child ran full tilt into her, fell flat, and burst out crying. That was comforting, rather. She stood her upright, dusted her frock, kissed her. But for herself she had done nothing wrong. She had loved Septimus, she had been happy, she had had a beautiful home, and there her sisters lived still, making hats. Why should she suffer? The child ran straight back to its nurse, and Retzia saw her scolded, comforted, taken up by the nurse, who put down her knitting, and the kind-looking man gave her his watch to blow open to comfort her. But why should she be exposed? Why not left in Milan? Why tortured? Why? Slightly waved by tears, the broad path, the nurse, the man in grey, the perambulator rose and fell before her eyes. To be rocked by this malignant torturer was her lot. But why? She was like a bird sheltering under a thin hollow of a leaf, who blinks at the sun when the leaf moves, starts at the crack of a dry twig. She was exposed. She was surrounded by the enormous trees, vast clouds of an indifferent world, exposed, tortured, and why should she suffer? Why? She frowned, she stamped her foot. She must go back again to Septimus, since it was almost time for them to be going to Sir William Bradshaw. She must go back and tell him, go back to him sitting there on the green chair under the tree, talking to himself, or to that dead man, Evans, whom she had only seen once for a moment in the shop. He had seemed a nice quiet man, a great friend of Septimus's, and he had been killed in the war. But such things happen to everyone. Everyone has friends who were killed in the war. Everyone gives up something when they marry. She had given up her home. She had come to live here in this awful city. But Septimus let himself think about horrible things, as she could too if she tried. He had grown stranger and stranger. He said people were talking behind the bedroom walls. Mrs. Filmer thought it odd. He saw things, too. He had seen an old woman's head in the middle of a fern. Yet he could be happy when he chose. They went to Hampton Circle on top of a bus, and they were perfectly happy. All the little red and yellow flowers were out on the grass like floating lamps, he said, and talked and chattered and laughed, making up stories. Suddenly he said, "Now we will kill ourselves," when they were standing by the river, and he looked at it with a look which she had seen in his eyes when a train went by, or an omnibus, a look as if something fascinated him. And she felt he was going from her, and she caught him by the arm. But going home he was perfectly quiet, perfectly reasonable. He would argue with her about killing themselves, and explain how wicked people were, how he could see them making up lies as they passed in the street. He knew all their thoughts, he said. He knew everything. He knew the meaning of the world, he said. Then, when they got back, he could hardly walk. He lay on the sofa and made her hold his hand to prevent him from falling down, down, he cried, into the flames, and saw faces laughing at him, calling him horrible, disgusting names from the walls, and hands pointing round the screen. Yet they were quite alone. But he began to talk aloud, answering people, arguing, laughing, crying, getting very excited and making her write things down. Perfect nonsense it was, about death, about Miss Isabel Pole. She could stand it no longer. She would go back. She was close to him now, could see him staring at the sky, muttering, clasping his hands. Yet Dr. Holmes said there was nothing the matter with him. What, then, had happened? Why had he gone, then? Why, when she sat by him, did he start, frown at her, move away, and point at her hand, take her hand, look at it, terrified? Was it that she had taken off her wedding ring? "My hand has grown so thin," she said. "I have put it in my purse," she told him. He dropped her hand. Their marriage was over, he thought, with agony, with relief. The rope was cut. He mounted. He was free, as it was decreed that he, Septimus, the lord of men, should be free. Alone, since his wife had thrown away her wedding ring, since she had left him, he, Septimus, was alone, called forth in advance of the mass of men to hear the truth, to hear the meaning, which now at last, after all the toils of civilization, Greeks, Romans, Shakespeare, Darwin, and now himself, was to be given whole to. To whom? He asked aloud. To the Prime Minister, the voices which rustled above his head replied. The supreme secret must be told to the cabinet. First, that trees are alive. Next, there is no crime. Next, love, universal love, he muttered, gasping, trembling, painfully drawing out these profound truths which needed, so deep were they, so difficult, an immense effort to speak out. But the world was entirely changed by them forever. No crime. Love, he repeated, fumbling for his card and pencil, when a Skye terrier snuffed his trousers and he started in an agony of fear. It was turning into a man. He could not watch it happen. It was horrible, terrible to see a dog become a man. At once the dog trotted away. Heaven was divinely merciful, infinitely benignant. It spared him, pardoned his weakness. But what was the scientific explanation? For one must be scientific above all things. Why could he see through bodies, into the future, when dogs will become men? It was the heat wave, presumably, operating upon a brain made sensitive by eons of evolution. Scientifically speaking, the flesh was melted off the world. His body was macerated until only the nerve fibers were left. It was spread like a veil upon a rock. He lay back in his chair, exhausted but upheld. He lay resting, waiting, before he again interpreted, with effort, with agony, to mankind. He lay very high on the back of the world. The earth thrilled beneath him. Red flowers grew through his flesh. Their stiff leaves rustled by his head. Music began clanging against the rocks up here. "It is a motor horn down in the street," he muttered. But up here it cannoned from rock to rock, divided, met in shocks of sound which rose in smooth columns. That music should be visible was a discovery, and became an anthem twined round now by a shepherd's boy's piping. "That's an old man playing a penny whistle by the public-house," he muttered, which, as the boy stood still, came bubbling from his pipe, and then, as he climbed higher, made its exquisite plaint while the traffic passed beneath. This boy's elegy is played among the traffic, thought Septimus. Now he withdraws up into the snows, and roses hang about him. The thick red roses which grow on my bedroom wall, he reminded himself. The music stopped. He had his penny, he reasoned it out, and is gone on to the next public house. But he himself remained high on his rock, like a drowned sailor on a rock. I leant over the edge of the boat and fell down, he thought. I went under the sea. I have been dead, and yet am now alive, but let me rest still. He begged. He was talking to himself again. It was awful, awful. And as, before waking, the voices of birds and the sound of wheels chime and chatter in a queer harmony, grow louder and louder, and the sleeper feels himself drawing to the shores of life, so he felt himself drawing towards life, the sun growing hotter, cries sounding louder, something tremendous about to happen. He had only to open his eyes, but the weight was on them, a fear. He strained, he pushed, he looked. He saw Regent's Park before him. Long streamers of sunlight fawned at his feet. The trees waved, brandished. We welcome, the world seemed to say. We accept, we create. Beauty, the world seemed to say. And as if to prove it, scientifically, wherever he looked at the houses, at the railings, at the antelopes stretching over the palings, beauty sprang instantly. To watch a leaf quivering in the rush of air was an exquisite joy. Up in the sky, swallows swooping, swerving, flinging themselves in and out, round and round, yet always with perfect control, as if elastics held them. And the flies rising and falling, and the sun spotting now this leaf, now that, in mockery, dazzling it with soft gold in pure good temper. And now and again some chime, it might be a motor horn, tinkling divinely on the grass stalks. All of this, calm and reasonable as it was, made out of ordinary things as it was the truth now. Beauty, that was the truth now. Beauty was everywhere. "It is time," said Retsia. The word time split its husk, poured its riches over him, and from his lips fell like shells, like shavings from a plane without his making them, hard, white, imperishable words, and flew to attach themselves to their places in an ode to time, and a mortal ode to time. He sang. Evans answered from behind the tree. The dead were in Thessaly, Evans sang among the orchids. There they waited till the war was over, and now the dead, now Evans himself. "For God's sake, don't come!" Septimus cried out, for he could not look upon the dead. But the branches parted. The man in grey was actually walking towards them. It was Evans. But no mud was on him, no wounds. He was not changed. "I must tell the whole world," Septimus cried, raising his hands, as the dead man in the grey suit came nearer, raising his hands like some colossal figure who has lamented the fate of man for ages in the desert, alone with his hands pressed to his forehead, furrows of despair on his cheeks, and now sees light on the desert's edge which broadens and strikes the iron-black figure. And Septimus half rose from his chair, and with legions of men prostrate behind him, he, the giant mourner, receives for one moment on his face the whole. "But I am so unhappy, Septimus," said Retsia, trying to make him sit down. The millions lamented. For ages they had sorrowed. He would turn round. He would tell them in a few moments, only a few moments more, of this relief, of this joy, of this astonishing revelation. "The time, Septimus," Retsia repeated. "What is the time?" He was talking. He was starting. This man must notice him. He was looking at them. "I will tell you the time," said Septimus, very slowly, very drowsily, smiling mysteriously. As he sat smiling at the dead man in the grey suit, the quarter struck, the quarter to 12.